There exists a level of self-mastery so absolute that even accomplished warriors bow their heads in reverence when witnessing it. And today you will discover the ancient system that creates such unshakable presence. Have you ever encountered someone whose discipline seems to flow from their very essence? Who moves through challenges with the stillness of mountain stone? Who maintains their practice when others abandon theirs? Who never negotiates with weakness because weakness simply finds no foothold in their being? While most people crumble at the first sign of discomfort, these individuals persist. While others make promises they break by Wednesday, they embody consistency itself. And when you witness this level of mastery, something in your chest tightens with recognition. This feels like the version of yourself you were born to become. Deep in the mountains of medieval Japan, there existed a training method so profound that masters would spend lifetimes perfecting its application. They called it Shuhari, the path of dissolving identity barriers. This was not mere skill acquisition. This was the systematic reconstruction of the self through 3 sacred phases of transformation. But there is something modern practitioners misunderstand. Shuhari was never about learning faster. It was about becoming someone who could not fail to learn. Before I reveal how this ancient system rewires your neural architecture, I invite you to reflect deeply on what you seek to master and share that intention below. Simply naming the goal initiates the shift, the awakening. The story I must share begins with a software engineer named David, 31 years old, intelligent, capable, yet haunted by a pattern that had followed him since childhood. He would begin with fierce determination. Monday morning arrivals at the gym, meal preparations executed with almost military precision, meditation cushions positioned with ceremony. The first week blazed with possibility. The second week flickered with effort. By the third week, his resolve had dissolved into familiar excuses and midnight negotiations with his weaker self. David had tried everything the modern world offered. Habit-tracking applications that became digital graveyards of abandoned streaks. Motivational videos that provided temporary emotional fuel but no lasting transformation. Accountability partners who eventually grew tired of witnessing his cycles of promise and surrender. He was trapped in what ancient warriors recognized as the most dangerous prison of all, the mind that knows what must be done, but cannot sustain the doing. One evening, after yet another failed attempt at consistency, David discovered something that would reshape his understanding of mastery itself. While researching ancient learning methods, he encountered the writings of Xiaomi Motokyo, the 14th century master who first articulated the principles of Shuhari. But more importantly, he discovered why this system created unbreakable practitioners while Western approaches produced endless cycles of starting and stopping. The secret of the warriors. In the mountain temples where samurai trained their minds and bodies, there existed a truth that modern psychology has only recently validated. True mastery emerges not from accumulating knowledge, but from dissolving the barriers between intention and action. The ancient masters understood something profound. Your current identity is the primary obstacle to your transformation. Shuhari operates on 3 levels that most people never penetrate. Shu, the foundation stage, appears deceptively simple, but requires complete ego surrender. Ha, the adaptation phase, demands courage to question everything while maintaining respect for proven principles. Rai, the transcendent stage, represents the ultimate goal where practice becomes as natural as breathing. But here lies what separates Shuhari from every other learning method. Western approaches begin with understanding, then move to practice. Shuhari begins with complete immersion in perfect form, allowing understanding to emerge through embodied experience. Your nervous system learns patterns before your conscious mind creates stories about those patterns. David began his journey by choosing a single master to follow completely. Not partially, not selectively, but with the total commitment that medieval apprentices brought to their training. He selected a renowned meditation teacher whose methods had remained unchanged for decades. For the next 90 days, David would replicate this teacher's exact approach without modification, without improvement, without inserting personal preference. This decision triggered something unexpected in his psychology. For the first time in years, David experienced the relief of having no choices to make. His meditation practice was predetermined. 20 minutes, same posture, same breathing technique, same time each morning. His analytical mind, which had spent years searching for the perfect method, finally quieted in the presence of absolute structure. The internal war. But Shuhari's first stage revealed an enemy David had not anticipated. His ego recoiled against faithful copying. Every morning, his mind generated sophisticated arguments for modification. This breathing pattern would work better for his physiology. That posture seemed unnecessarily rigid for his flexibility level. His inner critic disguised resistance as wisdom, rebellion as innovation. The ancient masters called this phenomenon the mind of alternatives. When you allow your consciousness to believe multiple options exist, you create internal warfare. Every meditation session becomes a negotiation. Every morning becomes a decision point. Your mental energy, which should flow toward practice, disperses into endless micro-choices. David discovered that his previous failures had not been caused by lack of motivation or insufficient willpower. They had been caused by decision fatigue. Each day, he exhausted his psychological resources, choosing when to practice, how to practice, whether to practice. By the time he sat down to meditate, his nervous system was already depleted from making choices that should never have existed. The Shu phase eliminates this warfare through radical simplicity. You follow one method, taught by one teacher, practiced in one way, for one predetermined period. Your mind cannot negotiate with constants. When the form is absolutely fixed, resistance has nowhere to attach itself. A fascinating transformation began occurring in David's neural pathways. Neuroscience research reveals that when you eliminate choice from repeated behaviors, your basal ganglia begin encoding those behaviors as identity rather than action. After 30 days of identical practice, David's brain stopped categorizing meditation as something he chose to do. It became something he was. The one path. By day 45, David had encountered the deeper layer of Shuhari that most practitioners never reach. His meditation practice had become automatic, but his understanding remained limited. He was performing the movements correctly while missing their essential meaning. This is precisely where the Ha phase begins its mysterious work. The ancient masters designed this progression deliberately. In Shu, you build unshakable foundation through faithful copying. In Ha, you begin questioning the principles behind the form while maintaining absolute respect for its proven effectiveness. This stage requires a different kind of courage. The willingness to examine why certain methods work while resisting the urge to immediately change them. David began studying not just his teacher's meditation technique, but the philosophical foundations that gave birth to that technique. He explored different approaches taught by other masters, comparing methodologies while maintaining his primary practice unchanged. This comparative study revealed patterns invisible during the Shu phase. He discovered that effective meditation methods shared common principles regardless of their surface differences. Consistent timing that bypassed decision-making, unchanging environmental cues that triggered automatic responses, simple techniques that could be maintained under any conditions, physical positions that supported sustained practice rather than demanding perfect comfort. Most significantly, David realized that his teacher's seemingly arbitrary rules actually addressed specific psychological obstacles that emerged during long-term practice. The fixed posture prevented his mind from escaping discomfort through physical adjustment. The consistent timing eliminated the search for the right moment. The breathing technique provided a concrete anchor when his attention wandered. This understanding marked David's transition into Ha. He was no longer blindly following instructions. He was consciously choosing to follow them because he understood their profound wisdom. His practice deepened not through modification but through appreciation of why modification was unnecessary. Practice without gaps. The ancient texts speak of a principle that determines whether mastery becomes permanent or temporary: the law of continuous flow. Just as a river maintains its identity through constant movement, your practice maintains its transformative power through unbroken consistency. The moment you create gaps, you begin losing not just momentum, but identity itself. David tested this principle when life inevitably created obstacles. Work travel that disrupted his morning routine, family emergencies that demanded his attention during meditation time, illness that made sitting uncomfortable. Each situation presented the same choice: maintain practice in modified form or create a gap that would require rebuilding momentum. The samurai understood something modern psychology has validated through dopamine research. When you break a streak, your brain doesn't simply reset to neutral. It actively reinforces the neural pathways associated with abandonment and inconsistency. Missing one day makes missing the next day easier. Missing 1 week makes missing the next week feel natural. But David had learned to think like a warrior rather than a civilian. Warriors don't practice only when conditions are perfect. They practice especially when conditions are challenging, because those moments forge unbreakable discipline. When his hotel room had no space for his usual posture, he meditated lying down. When family chaos prevented his full 20 minutes, he practiced 5 minutes of conscious breathing. When illness made concentration difficult, he simply sat in stillness without forcing any particular technique. The key insight was maintaining practice identity rather than practice perfection. A river doesn't stop being a river when it encounters rocks or narrows into streams. It adapts its form while maintaining its essential nature. David's meditation practice became like water, flexible in expression but constant in presence. This flexibility within structure created an unexpected psychological shift. His practice became truly independent of external conditions because it no longer depended on external conditions. He was no longer someone who meditated when everything aligned perfectly. He was someone who meditated because meditation was integral to his being. The ancient masters called this state practice without gaps, and modern neuroscience explains why it proves so powerful. When behavior becomes identity-based rather than goal-based, your brain stops treating it as optional. You don't debate whether to breathe each morning. You don't negotiate with your heartbeat. When practice reaches this level of integration, it becomes as automatic and non-negotiable as any other life-sustaining function. Pre-solutions. But David's journey revealed one final obstacle that destroys more transformations than lack of motivation or insufficient knowledge. Unexpected circumstances that demand immediate decisions under stress. The moments when your carefully constructed routine encounters chaos and you must choose between maintaining practice or choosing the path of least resistance. These unexpected disruptions reveal the samurai's deepest teaching. True warriors don't make battlefield decisions in the heat of combat. They pre-decide their responses to every conceivable scenario before the enemy arrives. Your mind under stress will always choose comfort over growth unless you have already chosen growth in moments of clarity. David learned to apply what the ancient masters called the principle of predetermined responses. He wrote down every situation that had previously broken his practice and created specific protocols for each one. When traveling, he would practice in airplane bathrooms if necessary. When sick, he would reduce duration but never eliminate practice entirely. When emotionally devastated, he would sit in simple awareness without forcing any technique. The power of this preparation extended beyond mere contingency planning. When your responses are predetermined, your nervous system stops treating obstacles as decision points. Your primitive brain, which normally activates stress responses when encountering unexpected challenges, remains calm because the path forward is already clear. You eliminate the psychological warfare that occurs when you must choose between comfort and commitment under pressure. A Harvard researcher studying decision-making under stress discovered that people who pre-decide their responses to difficult situations show dramatically lower cortisol levels when those situations arise. Their prefrontal cortex remains available for execution rather than depleting itself through choice-making. David had unknowingly accessed the same neural efficiency that allowed samurai to move with sharp precision under pressure rather than panic. By day 70, David's meditation practice had transcended the realm of conscious choice. His body would naturally wake moments before his alarm. His feet would touch the floor and move toward his meditation cushion without conscious direction. His practice had become what the masters called body wisdom, behavior so deeply integrated that it bypassed mental negotiation entirely, the transcendence. But the ancient texts speak of a final transformation that separates ordinary practitioners from those who achieve true mastery. The transition from ha to ri represents not just skill refinement, but complete identity reconstruction. You stop being someone who practices meditation and become someone whose very existence is meditative presence. David entered this phase without recognizing it initially. After 4 months of unwavering practice, something fundamental had shifted in his neural architecture. His meditation was no longer a morning activity that preceded his real day. It had become the foundation from which all other activities emerged. His work conversations carried the same quality of attention he brought to his breathing. His movements throughout the day maintained the same centered awareness he cultivated in stillness. The ancient masters understood what modern psychology terms state-dependent learning. When you practice a particular quality of consciousness consistently, that consciousness begins infiltrating all areas of your existence. David discovered that his meditation practice had been secretly rewiring his default mode network. The brain patterns active during rest and reflection. His baseline state of being had fundamentally altered. This transformation manifested in ways that surprised even David. Colleagues began commenting that his presence felt different, more grounded, less reactive. His family noticed that he no longer became agitated by minor disruptions or unexpected demands. Friends observed that he seemed to move through life with an unshakable center that remained constant regardless of external circumstances. What David had achieved through Shuhari was precisely what the ancient warriors sought. A form of discipline so deeply integrated that it became indistinguishable from identity itself. He was no longer practicing self-mastery. He had become self-mastery. The distinction between who he was and what he practiced had dissolved completely. But this level of transformation created an unexpected social phenomenon that the samurai texts warned about extensively. When your discipline becomes truly effortless, others experience discomfort in your presence. Your existence proves that their excuses are choices, that their limitations are self-imposed, that their struggles stem from internal resistance rather than external circumstances. David noticed that people began responding to him differently. Some friends stopped complaining about their problems around him because his quiet presence made their self-defeating stories feel hollow. Colleagues who constantly discussed their failed attempts at consistency grew uncomfortable during conversations because his stability highlighted their chaos. Family members who had grown accustomed to his previous cycles of starting and stopping now felt subtle pressure to examine their own patterns. This is the inevitable consequence of authentic transformation. When you embody the qualities that others claim to desire but fail to cultivate, you become a living mirror reflecting their potential back to them. Some people respond with inspiration and begin their own journey toward mastery. Others respond with subtle hostility, attempting to undermine your consistency or convince you that your dedication is excessive. The ancient masters prepared their students for this social reality. True discipline creates separation between those who practice it and those who merely discuss it. Your consistency will make the inconsistent uncomfortable. Your commitment will challenge those who live in constant negotiation with themselves. Your presence will remind others of the gap between their intentions and their actions. David learned to navigate this social landscape with the same centered awareness he brought to his practice. He neither hid his transformation nor flaunted it. He simply continued being who he had become, while allowing others to respond according to their own level of readiness for growth. This approach embodied the highest teaching of the Ri phase. Authentic mastery requires no external validation because it generates its own internal authority. David's transformation through Shuhari reveals what the ancient masters knew. True mastery is not about learning skills faster, but about becoming someone incapable of abandoning the path. Through Shu, you surrender ego to build unshakable foundation. Through Ha, you understand principles while maintaining reverence for proven forms. Through Ri, you transcend technique and embody mastery itself. The three phases dissolve the barriers between intention and action, creating warriors whose discipline flows from their very essence. What skill will you begin mastering through the ancient way, starting today? Now it's your turn to step onto the path. In the comments below, declare the identity you choose to embody from this day forward. Not a goal, not a plan, an identity. Who do you become when hesitation ends? Write it, seal it, and let this be the first step of your own unbreakable self.